just coming home from a ride. Once again, not so great weather, so unfortunately I can't film the video in my great spot in the park. So yeah, just voice over this week again.
The route that you're taking on any trip is probably one of the most important things that will define your experience and your adventure. Today I'll be talking about the planning of the route before you go on a trip, and I'll also talk about some maps and navigation apps and how you combine those in the best possible way. Now there's quite some different approaches on this. Some like to plan the exact way they're going with every turn beforehand, and some like not to plan at all and just see where the road takes them. After this video, if you like, take a look at our website. We've got lots of info, lots of cool pictures, lots of stories about our past travels on there. And I think it's worth a visit at butwhatsouthere.com. So, it all depends on how long your trip is going to be. If it's only a weekend trip, I definitely have at least a good look at where I want to go, since in this short amount of time you want to get the most out of it. That means planning so that you don't have to ride on too big or busy roads if possible. Depending on what you like, choosing roads with lots of hills and climbing or merely flat roads. And including cool landmarks or sites that you would probably miss if you don't plan ahead. On the other hand, if you're on the road for multiple weeks or even months, it doesn't really make sense to plan far ahead, as the circumstances and plans can always change spontaneously. On our 3-month trip from Berlin to Azerbaijan, Finn and me only planned the countries and the biggest cities that we wanted to cross. We also didn't even plan the exact number of days or something we'd need for certain stretches, because weather, the roads and other circumstances can always change. So for example, the stretch from Prague to Vienna we had planned to finish in 4 days, but it actually took 5 days since it was just so hilly, what we didn't really know beforehand. And then we also took an unplanned rest day in Vienna. In Prague we looked roughly at which towns we would cross on the way to Vienna, but took the planning day by day. Only in the evenings and mornings that we looked for the exact roads that we wanted to take. And only when we were in Vienna we started thinking about the next stretch to Budapest, and in Budapest we started thinking about the next stretch to Belgrade and so on. That way it's also easier psychologically not to think about the big goal at the end that is so far away, but just think about the next big city or the next rest day, and you'll always have something to look forward to. So I'd say that was very spontaneous and broad planning, but anything else doesn't really make sense on a trip like that. Think of the cities that you want to cross and maybe the landmarks or mountain ranges, and take it a week at a time. After all, the coolest things happen when you don't plan them, and if you feel like suddenly riding to another country or another direction, then that's great. On a shorter trip, you'll want to plan more exact, since that way you can include all the cool features like remote roads, certain landmarks or villages and other details that you probably wouldn't find if you didn't plan. There's 3 maps apps that I use regularly, and all have unique features, and it's great to combine all their strengths together. They are Komoot, Maps.me and Google Maps or Apple Maps. Komoot is definitely the best for the planning process beforehand. You can plan to an incredible deal of detail, and it shows exactly which surface and what kind of road it is that you'll be riding on, which is incredibly helpful. And of course there are also contour or terrain lines. It's 20 euros as one-time payment, and it's 100% worth it, I'd say. On Komoot you can also find lots of spots, highlights, trails, cool stretches of road that have been marked by other people in the community, often with pictures, so it really helps to put together great routes beforehand. You can also sync those routes up with your bike computer for navigation, so that way you don't have to get your phone out to navigate. Maps.me also has a planning feature, but you can't alter the given route so much, so it's more to get from A to B. The great thing about Maps.me is that you can download maps around the globe for offline usage, and you only download the exact parts that you need, so there's no storage wasted. And even better is that it shows supermarkets, gas stations, where there will likely be toilets and tap water, banks, restaurants, picnic tables, public toilets, and lots more categories offline, which is incredibly helpful when you need one of those. Because maybe in some countries you don't have internet on your phone, so you can't Google those things, but then Maps.me shows you everything you need to know. Maps.me also shows contour and terrain lines, and since recently they also show public transport in some places. Google Maps is the only one that shows satellite images, so we mostly use it when trying to find a camp spot. That is very helpful to have satellite images. to see where it might be suited, but of course you can only use when there's internet there. When looking for camping spots, that's a place where you can combine different apps. Some places on satellite images look great for camping, but then you have a look at the Maps.me terrain lines and you see that it's probably too steep to camp there. Or when you've got your route on Komoot for the next day, and since Komoot doesn't show supermarkets, you might have a look at Maps.me if there's a supermarket along the route, or if you have to take a little detour. Google Maps or Apple Maps also make it a bit easier to plan a route on the go than Komoot. So if you're just trying to get from one place to another and don't really care what kind of road it is, without special detours, it works perfectly fine. To sum up, a long multi-week or multi-month trip is most of the time to explore new places, and that in most cases works best if you just ride with the flow and ride wherever the road takes you. Do the planning spontaneously, just use big cities or other things as pinpoints that define the broad direction of the route and that you can look forward to. The shorter the trip, the more sense it makes to plan in detail, since you want to make the most out of your limited time. Komoot is great for planning beforehand, with recommendations by the community and the road surface being shown. Those features are perfect for planning the best routes. Maps.me is the best offline maps app out there in my opinion. The most helpful feature being the things like supermarkets, gas stations, where you often find toilets and tap water, banks and other things being shown. So even if you don't have a SIM card for the country, if you download the maps in a Wi-Fi area beforehand, you won't run into problems. And last but not least, Google Maps or Apple Maps with their satellite images are best for finding camping spots. And I think a combination of all three of them works very well. But never forget, it's all about the journey, not the goal. So one of the most important things is to be spontaneous and curious, and then you'll always have the best time out there. Thanks for watching this little video. I hope it was helpful. Check out our website, all the info's up there as well as usual. We've also got the links to our Instagram, Strava and Komoot accounts in the description below the video, so check these out if you like, and see you next Sunday.